What is home care? Home care is a care option that allows an older adult to live in his or her own home and be cared for by a professional. Home care services can often vary, depending on the older adult's health scenario. They can include things like personal care, bathing assistance, transportation, and specialized Alzheimer's care. Home care is also flexible in scheduling, ranging from a few hours per day to around-the-clock service. Most providers will create a unique care plan tailored to the needs of the individual. Then from there, a schedule is set for a professional caregiver to arrive at the appointed times and provide one-on-one care in the home. The three most common reasons for home care: 1. Life enhancement through social interaction and companionship. This includes such things like cooking meals, playing games, and transportation to appointments. 2. Acute care for chronic conditions such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. 3. Safety of having someone to provide personal care and administer medication, reducing the possibility of pandemic exposure. To find out more about home care, visit homeinstead.com.
And we're back. Oh, thank you for hanging in there. We've really had some good discussion this morning. Yesterday we had some really great discussion. This is the second annual No Place Like Home conference or symposium. And the concept is there are a lot of people that would like to, in their minds, age in place, and what we find is they're not sure what that means. So we would like to help educate what that means, and then we would like to make sure that that's a good thing for them, because sometimes aging in the family home might not be the best thing for them. So we're going to talk, this one, our session here is going to be a little bit more specific than that, but we have some great folks with us. Reminder that thank you to our Garden Plaza at Valley View for sponsoring us. They've given us a room in here. They bring us food. They bring us water. They won't let us out of the room, which is why they bring, no, that's not true. And then Home Instead, thank you. And Blue Cross of Idaho True Blue Special Needs Plan, thank you as well. So today we're really trying to handle an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's probably not the right ratio.
It's probably a ton.
But yeah, I was going to say a term that maybe we shouldn't, but yeah, more than a pound. And so joining us in this one is immediately to my right is Dee Childers, and Dee and I go back a little bit. A little bit.
We don't have to get into years.
No, I've decided not to do that. And Dee comes to us from Life Changes Elder Care Consulting. Before that, you were in the
HR. Everybody's favorite department.
Yes. And all I'm telling you is if she could negotiate HR for companies, big and or little, doesn't matter. She can negotiate through helping families figure out what the next step is. And it would be so nice if we didn't have to worry about that next step, because we'd already figured that out clear back there. But that doesn't always happen. So sometimes we need that next step. And one thing I need to mention, because you are a certified elder mediator, and people don't realize, some families get this really quick, that not all the kids are on the same page. Can I just say that?
You could say that.
Is
I think
that
that's
accurate?
It's a very accurate statement.
Well, and I've noticed they all grieve in their own way, you know, and they all care about mom in, you know, their own way. They view the world in their own way. And I just explained the whole COVID thing, didn't I? Right?
A bit of that, for sure.
Diversity. We celebrate it.
So families can sometimes have struggles, and Dee is wonderful at working with the families to kind of find a path forward. And I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Melissa Radloff, who is the director of everything. Okay, just 3 projects.
There's a few lists.
From Janus. Tell us a little bit about Janus.
So Janus is a local nonprofit that is an umbrella for about 20 different projects, different programs under Janus.
So should we mention the ones that you're not over, or just the ones that you're over?
Just the ones that I'm over,
okay.
because the ones I'm over are all focused on serving seniors, older adults.
Oh, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
We have a new website that I'm really excited about, and it's called Aging Strong. And so it kind of helps me think about like a new way of aging.
Got it.
Because we're doing it strong.
So is that the typical www.agingstrong.org?
Exactly.
Org?
Org.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And works with the Legacy Core program, which is wonderful, by the way. And you also work with the Powerful Tools for Caregivers, which is wonderful because I just know the families that I see that don't understand the incredible effort it takes to be a caregiver and the impact it has on them personally, and as well as other relationships. And they just, so maybe when I get my little car with the speaker on top, I can go around and saying, hey, you there, not only are you going to die, I'm just trying to get their attention, right?
Let's age strong.
Yeah, let's age strong while we're doing it. Anyhow, all right. So what we'd like to cover today, and we talked a little bit before we came on camera, was identifying or understanding, a support system. I think that we were just talking in the last session that ignorance, the not knowing, is so strong, and it just is so easy to get overwhelmed and to panic and just be terrified of the situation. But I think the second part of that is thinking that you're all alone, that you got to do this by yourself. And so I thought that's maybe where we'd start, and knowing the two of you, we'll just see where it goes.
We kind of talked about just talking.
Well, this will be great. You'll enjoy this, I can tell you that. But it will be very informational as well. So let's start with that. Whether I don't know that they acknowledge to themselves, but I've seen it where they think or feel that they're in this all by themselves. Dad's got Alzheimer's, and now I got to deal with this, whether that's a spouse or a child. Tell us why that maybe isn't the best thinking.
Well, I kind of have been a living example of that. That was my approach for a few years, was sticking my head in the sand and leaving every gathering with my mom and dad and communicating with my sisters. We need to do something here. I see changes. We need to do something. And then we'd stick our head back in the sand until the crisis came. And crisis is not the time you want to be dealing with this. I can tell you firsthand, it is overwhelming and not helpful to you or to your loved ones. What about you?
Well, I love this opportunity to talk about it because I love going back to what Rosalind Carter quoted, in that there's 4 types of people in the world: those who are caregivers, those who are going to be caregivers, those who need care, and those who are going to need care. And it's just inevitable that we're all in this one of these situations, and it's not a college course or a high school home ec course, or we're not prepared for this. And so it's something that we find ourselves in where we have to ask for that help, because it's not just ingrained in our education system and our normal family models, and we can't do it alone. So I love that we can just talk more about it and make it a more normalized part of our world, because
It is. Well, and if you think about it, we used to grow up watching our elders take care of their parents.
Yep.
And so we had real-time training and experience about what that
We had a
looked like.
model, anyway.
We did have a model. And now we live so far apart from each other, and we just don't take care of each other in our culture today the way we used to. So we're lacking all of those skills. Plus, we don't see so many of our loved ones often enough to really pick up on what's going on until it's real obvious. So we need to become good at picking up those clues. And even better, which is what we're going to talk about, is kind of knowing in advance, well, what do you do when you figure out help is needed? Right?
I would add to that not only are our family structures very different than they used to be when we saw family taking care of family in the household, our medical system has also changed through the years. So no longer is it normal to stay in the hospital after a surgery or a procedure. It's now outpatient, and you're going home and caring for people at home more and differently. So, so it does call for different types of communication.
So,
within our
so
families.
would the two of you knock it off, because this is scary? This just
sorry.
this just seems kind of scary. Well, and I think that's why you see people that are just,
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Right.
So if I have someone who is just, I mean, you can tell. Some of them will acknowledge, I'm in this all by myself, or and I know they're not necessarily, but
Right.
that's what they say.
Yes.
And then there's others you can see and go, oh, she thinks that she's got to do this all by herself. Where do you start? How do you talk to that person?
Well, one of the first things, being the firstborn of two firstborn parents, is that those traits of taking it on solo and independent resonate deeply for us, as well as I see Carly raising her hand over there. So it's a natural go-to for some of us. Oh, we have to be in charge. We have to fix all of this. Yep. And the truth of the matter is, you are not going to be as successful as you can if you take that approach. And we'll provide you a copy of the handout for the website if you'd like, but it's a way to start looking at your support system with concentric circles getting bigger and bigger, and having you literally do the exercise of figuring out, all right, who's in the center for this caregiving task? And it's probably you listening to this right now.
Although you could be helping someone.
You could be helping
Yeah.
someone. And the next circle out is close friends and family that would step up and be there for you. So to start writing down names, you don't need to be assigning anything right now, but just write down names of people that are close to you, close to the senior, the situation, and who are those folks?
Now, when you say close, do you mean geographically here that are close, or do you mean emotionally that are close? What do you mean by that?
And that's an excellent question, because in some ways we kind of need to divide that between close emotional connection, because they're a great support system in one direction, but they can't do hands-on as well.
Yeah.
So then there's the people that are close to you that are available physically to do hands-on kinds
Got
of
it.
things when you get to the point of having a list of things that you want to do. And then beyond that, what's the next circle out? What's the extended system look like, both geographically and connection to the family system and to the senior?
So you could be talking about the very first, so if I'm in the middle, then that next group for me would be siblings, my spouse, grandkids, that type of
Could
thing.
be.
That next group out there, though, that could be neighbors. It could be a church community that that we kind of keep an eye on each other. What else can we think of in that? Just to give us an idea of how to think through this.
Right. I think neighbors, just friends that are in town, close relationships, people have folks that they went through the service together. That's a connection, but maybe they're not immediately close by, but they're great emotional support. It could be distant relatives, anybody that has a connection to the person that we're talking about that you think might be interested in participating in the process. But just to write down names, you don't do problem solving about, well, if this, then this, or they can't. Just list names. I think you'll be very surprised about how many you come up with.
And with those lists, remembering that these are not just people who are close to you, but also to the person that you're caring for. So if it's your father, then his military buddies, his church buddies, his folks, and reaching out to including their names in this list too, because they probably want to be a part of it and don't know what to do.
Exactly.
Well, I think we established that from the top. A lot of people that don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's usually because we don't tell them. So that's going to be our next step. But I want to go two more circles out.
Very good.
The next circle out is really, who are the professionals? Because we do sometimes forget that the professionals in our world are there to help us as well. I love my chart with one of the medical systems in town. I can't tell you how much more I get done because I have direct communication to any provider in that system that my person sees. And so all of the medical people that are out there that are part of that team are part of your team and are a resource to you. And then do you want to talk about the next one?
The community support? No, not really. I'm thinking, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
So I'm thinking
fitting in there.
First of all, the powerful tools for caregiving, I have to tell you, that is an excellent training program. And when I first found myself in this journey, which was 12 years ago now, and I didn't know anything either, and I took powerful tools for caregiving, and it was so foundational in helping me understand the role and some of the other things that we're going to talk about today. But there are support groups out there for people who are in the caregiving role, and some of them are disease related, and it doesn't really matter. They're support groups, and there are some that are not disease related, that are more general caregiver support groups. And to take advantage of that, and one of the things that's kind of been an upside of COVID, if there are any, is that we've all gotten a lot more comfortable with electronic communication. So
Yes.
Zoom meetings, Hangouts, whatever platform they're using.
That sounds familiar. We might be doing that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly to the point. And you can get support. So I do co-facilitate the early stage Alzheimer's support group. And that's the one with the participants being both the person with the diagnosis and their care partner. And we weren't quite sure how that was going to work out on Zoom. But you know what? It worked out fabulous. And everybody felt strongly that they got the information and the support and their needs met. So keep that in mind, that it doesn't have to be in person right now. Virtual is the way our world is working primarily.
Can I ask a question on behalf of those that are listening and going, I need to ask a question? That's what an advocate does.
Yeah, absolutely.
The community resources. The question that I have there is, and I know Melissa knows a ton of these, where do we find information about this, right? You know, if because we're trying to map this a little bit, right? We're mapping this. A lot of community support. How do we find out?
Thanks, Dee, for covering for me on that community support. I know where you're going with this here now. I have a better idea. But right, so I want it just added to the community support spectrum. I would really include faith communities are a huge go-to, and even if you're regularly go to a church or I am finding that every website everyone has different groups within their faith communities that maybe you can network in deeper into those communities that you're already involved with. And maybe it's through veterans group, the VFW. Oh my gosh, they have so many opportunities to connect. And the vet center, there's so many out there. But right, how do you navigate? How do you find the ones that are connected to, that are going to work for you? And so caregiving through the lifespan, we're not just talking about people who are caring for someone who is aging, but also adult or younger children with different disabilities or special needs, and the myriad of caregiving that we see in today's world. But I always say first go-to is the area agencies on aging. All over the United States, no matter where you live, there's an area agency on aging that is a good first hop-off point. And I wanted to, one other thing about the community resources. I know in previous presentations, we've all been talking about, wow, the internet and virtual connections are actually possible for a wide range of age groups, and it might look different. We've been having a lot of meetings, Zoom meetings, where a lot of the participants are on the phone because that's how they can get on. But our communities, in many ways, are getting larger. So even if there's a support group that you don't quite connect with, there are even more options now available through Zoom or through conference calls or all the different ways people are setting it up.
Right.
Awesome. Is there one more? Did we get to 4? You said there's 5 different circles on this.
I'm good with the circles.
Okay, are we? Because I was just like, okay, so what's after that? What do you?
We were at the middle of it, so from there we've got 4 others.
Well, I would hope that the first thing that happens when somebody goes through that is a little hope.
Yes.
All of a sudden they're going, wait a minute, I don't have to do this by myself. Now, the oldest, is the caregiving child, and they take care of the rest of us, and that's great.
What's your birth order?
I'm number 2 out of 7.
Oh, so you kind of are too.
Yeah, so my brother and I, anyhow, it's a longer story, but some are still a little bit stubborn, right? I mean, they go, yeah, sure, but they're not going to help me. What's the next step? After you've listed this, and now we've got something of if not a map, I mean, as in a true sense of a map, we've kind of got a list of folks. What's the next step?
I think that the next step is, I think along with that, or something that needs to be brought up at this part of the conversation, is that the prioritizing and recognizing and honoring that self-care is critical in caregiving and in supporting other people in aging in place. And so putting yourself the next step is, okay, how can I ask for help, and where do I need help, and what are the things that I need, as well as what are the things that the person I'm caring for needs, so that because if you get burnt out, caregiver burnout is a real thing. It happens, and
it can flatten you flat.
and it's not going to flatten you in a planned way. You can't plan that. So we can't stress enough to make sure that you are making time for yourself and your own personal needs, because the next step is then trying to come up with your list of where can people plug in, because then you kind of turn into command central or post central, and as the youngest in the family, it's funny how the family dynamics come into, like, the oldest is always going to be in charge and in control, but yeah, so where can I need help? Where do I need help? Where can I accept help?
Hold that thought, because that's like 20 minutes of a conversation there, but we'll talk about that. But okay, so we start, is that what we do next? Is we're starting to measure up, okay, I could sure use some help here, and here. And then do you divide that out? I've got professionals here to help with this, but I got some friends, maybe an army buddy that could go fishing or something.
Well, I
How
think
do
there's
you do
kind of
this?
two parts here, because we're not in this alone, but we might be the caregivers, but then there are the care recipients, and they have to buy into this at some level.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so that is a really key piece of this too. So we can make all the list we want and get involved with all the support groups that we want, but if dad is still saying, I don't need help, I don't want you in the house, I don't want you doing this, I don't want you doing
They never
that.
do that.
I know, they never do that, but every single day. and you know, denial is not just a river in Egypt.
In Egypt, yeah.
It's a way of living. And what is interesting to me that I see in my business is that seems to be a bit more true for the generation prior to my parents.
Yeah.
But not quite as much my generation. I'm in the boomer generation. Boomers were a little more aware that we need to plan if we want to continue to stay in charge like we always have. You know, we like to change things. So I see a little more planfulness, but we're still dealing with a lot of people who independence is their core value.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a big piece about what we're talking about here is people's values. And if independence and not being a burden, I mean, how many times have we heard that with people that come into our office? I don't want to be a burden. And
Yeah.
yet they get so hung up on that. It's like, well, actually, it's even more unhelpful that
Yeah.
you won't let me help
They're
you right
even
now.
more of a burden.
Right,
Yeah.
because now I'm cleaning up when you have to go to the hospital emergency. So we do have to, one of the things I think is so important is to start engaging in this conversation with our people in our world earlier than crisis moments. So we know crisis is going to happen and you're going to have to do what you have to do to get through the crisis. But then when the crisis is gone, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So your list includes things that, you know, your folks, your loved ones are willing to look at perhaps some help with. And you got to start baby, because sometimes that might mean just bringing in a meal or two. Right?
Well, we probably all have, if you've been involved in a church group in your life, you've probably all did a meal for somebody that lost a husband or something like that. But then you go, no, you're not going to bring a meal to my house, which is hypocritical, by the way. But that's how we are. We will give all the help that we can, but, oh no, I don't need your help.
Right.
I think one thing that I see so much in our work, because we, the Legacy Corps program provides volunteer-powered respite to people. And what I see in our volunteers, and I think it's a good reflection on everyone, is that giving is a gift, right? So if we can help people understand that by asking for help, you're actually not a burden to them, but you're gifting them the opportunity to be involved and feel needed and feel valued. To kind of shift that perspective is one angle to try to go with, because I see it all the time, and I know we all want to feel valued and needed, and so it's giving someone that opportunity when you ask them for help. Hard to wrap your head around for many of us, but it is true.
It is. No, I've only seen it a lot.
A lot. Well, and the other part of that is then asking permission. to be able to help. So that's one of the places that I see things go awry very quickly, is when we decide that we're just going to come in like the cavalry and save the day, and we're not welcomed,
We're gonna be
not
the hero.
appreciated. Yes,
We're the hero.
and it doesn't set up a helpful dynamic for moving forward. So recognizing that help's needed and then asking permission to be able to do help in baby steps is really key to success.
So I see that happening a couple different ways, but maybe the first one is if I'm the caregiver and I've got my map put together pretty well, or I've got my, you know, my network here laid out pretty well. And then I have absolutely no idea what to do with that. Would be a good time for me to ask for some help. Right?
Right.
Isn't this really, I mean, we're not even talking about dad letting us help. We're just, I need some help with this. I got this. What do I do with it?
Right.
And so what do I do with it?
Well, one of the things Melissa and I were chatting about before is usually we're in the thick of it. We don't remember what those things are. So what we recommend is that as you go through your day and you're trying to multitask and get 12 things done at one time, and there's one more, go write it on a list. So you start a caregiving needs list. And you know, on your counter, on your refrigerator, wherever it is. But whenever you think, oh yeah, it'd be great if somebody could order groceries for us. Oh yeah, it'd be great if somebody could go pick up shoes or do some errands or take mom out for her hair and lunch one day.
Maybe that list can also be part of the sticky notes that you keep by your bed, because that's the thing that's keeping you up at night, or you wake up and it's twirling in your mind, and just like add it to this list. Just get that list going.
Right.
So my thinking is, knowing the people that I know, don't tell them that these are things you're going to ask people to do. Maybe just keep track of the things you do, right?
Absolutely.
Because that may be hard for them to translate. Oh, I got to go get the groceries. Well, they didn't think of it in terms of, man, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could go get the groceries?
Excellent point.
They thought of it in terms of, that's one more thing I got to do.
Right. Exactly. I like that. Not
So-
only what you're doing, but what you can't get done.
Oh, yeah. Or, yeah, this sure needs to be done. Oh, I got to get the car washed. Oh, I got, all these
Yeah.
things. And so it seems to me that just making a list would be a good place to start.
Exactly.
So then we would have, here's a group that could be a network for mom or dad and one for me, or, we mix this together. Here's all the things that we do or that need to be done. All right, so I got this far. Now what do I do?
Well, prioritizing the list is really a good idea.
Okay.
What's at the top of the list, and what are some of the things that you feel particularly strongly about that must be led or done by you?
This is
Oh,
where it
okay.
gets into delegation. This is where it gets into
Yeah.
the skill and craft of delegation.
Yes.
Of, are the outcomes of these particular tasks very important? How important are they to you? If mowing the lawn is one of those things that you can't get to, is really bothering you, needs to be done, and you're willing to give it up, does it matter if someone's mowing the lawn in a circle or horizontal, or like, are you going to be really attached to specifics about this, or are you going to be able to let it go? That would be a great one to delegate if you're not attached to exactly how it's done.
So I like to think of it, what needs to get done? When does it need to be done by, if there is a deadline? And, maybe one of your loved ones has an issue with never do it in circles. So in that case, you might do how. But you want to find a way to empower the people that are helping you to be able to do things perhaps a little bit their way. So you give them, what are the outside boundaries of this? So what's the desired result? And if they know what the outcome needs to look like, and we let them know, here's where I want you to check in with me, or you're good, just go do it. One of our families the other day, she was complaining that the caregivers were spending too much money on her grocery list. So I kind of took it to be that she wanted the store brand version. She did not want the top shelf version of it.
And or the other way around.
Yes, and or the other way around, exactly. So the clarity that we got from her in this conversation that we had with her is, okay, caregivers, you don't shop the way you want to shop. You shop the way our client wants you to shop. And she wants store brand, best deal, and that's what we're going to do. And it's a small little thing that creates a lot of peace.
And adding, you know, and on adding photos when it's like this is the brand of rice crispy or whatever it is that I like. Add the picture to that list that's going out with the caregivers. So as much direction as possible.
Right. So an example of that, you might come up with a food list that has brands, but you don't know how to type it up or to make an Excel spreadsheet. Well, who on your list is good with Excel?
Oh, very good.
So there's an example of being able to give somebody an opportunity to help you and really get something off your plate. And now you have a shopping template that you just check off, but you needed help to make that work well.
So part of this, I would guess, is what are the things, until I know better, I have to do? Can I get it down to, well, I need to help mom up in the morning, you know, somebody needs to be there, and you know, and will she let me do that, or, you know, whatever. So that would be maybe if we had another map with concentric circles, would be in the middle of stuff that I have to do it. I'm sorry, I've tried, but I have to do it. And then your priority after that. I love the idea of the clarity. Now, you probably get there from your HR background, that if you're bringing somebody in and you're training them, attorneys are horrible, by the way. Here's the case, go get it done. That's how I learned.
Right.
You know, you go do the research and you go over and get your head pounded in, and, well, that didn't work. Well, yeah, because you did it wrong. And so the clarity of, well, let's get it done this way. And it seems to me that if you can do that, then the grandson or daughter can mow the lawn and sweep up afterwards and do the edging, you know, or rake the leaves, those types of things, which, by the way, is huge for the grandkids.
Yeah.
And
Even
the
if they don't
time
know
frame.
it.
The
Yeah.
time frame
Yes.
with it too, right? That of, boy, I need it done twice a month. And if you let me know when you can do it, that's great. And I'll make sure that I have the gas
Whatever,
for the
yeah.
mower, or I'll make sure I'm not home because I kind of have a personality conflict with you, you know, because that's part of it too, is bringing in supports that maybe they're not, you know, maybe it's a challenging relationship. But we don't have to, but it's always nice to find ways to make those work too, right?
You know, that's often the way with siblings. You know, there's a couple of siblings that can't be in the same place at the same time. Well, don't set things up to be that way. Do your calls over Zoom and telephone. And then when one's in the house helping in this area, the other one's not due to arrive until the next day. So we have to balance these relationships all the time. We are doing large balancing.
Yeah, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we just got started.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm done.
We're ready for a couple more hours of this.
Yeah, well,
Hang in there.
I think that's part of this, though, is if I'm the caregiver and all of a sudden you got me to a place where I wasn't before. Okay, I got a network now. I love this, but I've got to coordinate this.
Well, you could be the coordinator, or you could assign someone else to be the coordinator. Here's what needs to get done. Here's the idiosyncrasies of relationships. Here's some of the boundaries. So just like everything else on your list, it is a task that can be delegated, providing that you provide the right boundaries and expected outcomes and time frame.
All right, so I put this one back a little bit, but we got to figure out how to ask for help, or we got to figure out how to get Dad to ask for help, or we ask for help for him or something? Tell me, how do we start this process? How do we ask? Or how do we get mom to ask? You know, mom who was always there with the casserole, right? She was the first one there with the casserole. Or in Idaho and Utah, the funeral potatoes, right? You know, the Mormon potatoes. They were the first one there, so asking is not their best skill.
Right.
How do we do this?
It's tricky.
And it's
And
different for every situation.
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
I am now done. I
Yeah.
was exhausted before, and
Yeah.
now I'm just.
So you have to know the person that you love and care for. And, you know, one of the things that gets right down to it is sometimes is just saying, Mom, I need help. I need help, and I want to do this for you. I want to be part of your team, and that's how I talk about it. Melissa and I were talking about this earlier. I just refer to always the team, and that it was that we're a team, and one person is the team leader, but ultimately our client, as long as they have capacity, is kind of like the team manager and says how things are going to go. And then we have the coach, and then we have other team members. So there's still a bit of a pecking order in this. But it's that where are the points where someone will be receptive? Well, Mom, you remember that you've done this over and over and over for all of your friends. And now your mission is to learn how to receive. And that's an important part of being a caregiver, is learning how to receive, being on the other end of it. So there's little things that, you know, as you sit and just think through this, is like, well, what might resonate for them?
So often we have families who maybe the wife caring for a husband, and husband has memory loss, and she does not want to leave him alone. So trying to find someone to hang out with husband so that she can have some time. But husband is, I don't need a babysitter. What?
Right.
We're not doing this. And part of that conversation is often, it's not really about you. It's more about your wife. Your wife is uncomfortable. It makes her nervous, gets her blood pressure going. It would make her feel better just to have someone here with you. Can you get on board for your wife?
And most of the time they will.
Okay.
Because they've been used to taking care of their wives or being a support system, and so they often will. Okay, this isn't about me, this is about her. Fine, that's good. So that's, whatever way in works, and it starts little, and then as things go successfully, you can add other areas where you can provide care. But you cannot effectively walk in and be the bulldozer and take over. It will be a disaster, I promise you. Nobody likes to be bowled over. Now, in crisis, yes, that's what we have to do, but we're here talking about pre-crisis.
Or post-crisis, because
Yes.
that subsides a little bit, and now we're fully implementing a plan, right? And so to me, then we're back to that.
Well, let's make sure, and part of the strategy there is let's make sure that we don't find ourselves in that kind of
And again.
crisis again, at least not like this as unprepared. So let's try and do a little preparing and planning.
And I think back to just one more thing on asking for help. Part of that is also being prepared for when help is vaguely offered, right? So that person who's,
What?
if I can ever do anything, let me know if I can do anything.
So
and
you get their information, you write it down.
and you
decide.
have your list. And
Oh,
you're
there you
like,
go.
actually, I've been trying to find someone to mow my lawn. Or actually, I believe my mom goes to the same hairdressers that you do. So being prepared to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. And if the person is like, oh, well, then you've kind of screened that person out, and or you understand a little bit more where or how they might be able to be involved or not be involved.
Well,
But
and offering them options too, alternatives. Well, maybe that's more responsibility and they want. Well, what about, picking up the groceries that we need once a week or whatever. So if they're not responsive to one and they've made the offer of help, don't give up.
Right.
Very good.
Right.
Push it a little bit.
Inviting dad to your car club or the card game that goes on at their house. And,
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of creative ways I don't think people just think of because we have to remember too that the person that we're caring for, they often, well, all of us, whether we realize it or not, need different social interaction. We need connection with people. And if it's just you and the person you're caring for in the house, they need those other relationships just as much as
Beside
you do.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, my mom's is a nice little place in Logan, Utah, and she has learned to accept the help.
Nice.
And she's very polite about it. She's very grateful and gracious. And you walk in the door and you say, and they'll see my name. Oh, you're Mary Jo's son.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And they all know Mary Jo, every one of them. And that just attracted help. So she's got a little med tech that comes in and watches Jeopardy with her. Just
Nice.
every day, Jeopardy's on. He finds a reason to be there, you know, to sit down and visit with her. But that for her was an acquired skill. It was not natural because she was the one there with the casserole every time and all kinds of things that we did. But the reward for that was the fact that people will stop in, and she gets visits from the CNAs who have moved on. You know, they live the other end of the state, but if they visit Logan, they go out and visit her. But that's an acquired skill. So if I'm in the middle of this, or I'm seeing this, and this is going to happen, or it's happening, where can I go to learn all of this? I mean, we talked about this. This is great, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, we're fairly conceptual learners, and so we see it, we can apply it. But man, there was a lot of stuff that you two talked about that's not in everybody's toolbox. Where do we learn this?
Well, you use the experts in the field. You use Janice and all of the many programs that they have that are so wonderful and really approachable. I mean, it's a minor amount that they charge for Powerful Tools for Caregiving, and I know that they do scholarships at times.
Actually, the Powerful Tools for Caregivers class is now free.
Oh,
Like
wow.
there's no charge for it anymore, and I really recommend that as a good starting point for many
Foundational.
people. And
Absolutely.
one of the things, we've been hosting that class for decades, over, I don't know, almost decades. And the one most common comment from people who have taken the class is, I wish I had taken this sooner. And the Powerful Tools for Caregivers class, it's a 6-week series, meets once a week. It's not a support group, but it's a supportive network of people. And every class has resources that help you support the tool that you learned in that class that time. So for any caregiver through the lifespan, I think it's a great way to start. And
Okay, it sounds wonderful. How soon is sooner? Everybody said, I wish I had done it sooner. When's sooner?
Well, if I could do it again, I would do it before my folks needed it. I like to have a skill before I need it. Because when you need it, you're now under a lot of stress. So I don't think you're too early to learn these kinds of things at any point in time.
And I would say for people who are, like, when you're starting to think, wow, maybe I'm going to have to help my parents pretty soon, that's a good time to start.
Right.
That's a good time to jump on board and go, okay, then you'll have those tools as you move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what I think.
And there are a plethora of books out there. If learning is the way to go, learning by books is a way to go. There's lots of caregiving books are out there, some disease related. I mean, I think everybody that I've ever talked to that's read the 36-hour day gets a really good sense of how intense caregiving can
Yeah.
be. So you don't have to read the whole thing, but it's another resource that'll give you some big picture about the things that you need to be thinking about, and there are a lot. This is a skill. There are people who are professional caregivers, and those that have good caregiving skills. And right down to the literal skill piece of, I was telling Melissa, when my dad started his road of dementia and he became incontinent, that it was the professional caregiver that I brought in to help me because I was still working. And she taught me how to change a pull-up without taking his pants off. And that was the day I just couldn't believe it. Oh my God, I don't have to, take his clothes off and get him dressed again. I could do that. And he always loved that. He just thought that was the funniest thing. So there are skills out there that you can learn. And there are some websites that literally do caregiver training. And there's not a lot because they tend to be focused on home care companies. But Learn, it's morningsideministrylearn.org, has a plethora of resources out there about literally how to take care of somebody's, genital area when you're cleaning them after they've had an accident, and how to do all sorts of things. I mean, I've been recently doing feeding tube training with caregivers, and it's like, okay, I learned this by accident, but there's places to go physically learn how to do a feeding tube. So if you can Google it, you can find a training on it.
So a little bit of feedback, and then we need a good takeaway from each of you if they didn't get anything else. The takeaway to me is, first of all, you're not alone.
Right.
Second of all, you can know it.
Yes.
I mean, it's available, and you can learn it.
Right.
Or you can find somebody to help you learn it.
Yes.
Those are the takeaways for me, because I know how scary that is for people, and that being alone is really scary.
It is.
What else?
I would say that that making yourself and your self-care a priority and advocating for that within a team that you're creating is going to help you be a better caregiver and help the quality of life of the person that you're caring for. And there are tools out there to
Very
do
good.
that. Mm-hmm.
For me, is getting clear about good communication skills, because we have to communicate what's going well, what's not going well, what needs to be done, differences of opinion. Melissa and I talked about the seagull earlier, that where somebody from out of town flies in and poops all over you and everything that you've been doing.
I like that one.
And
We see that a lot.
yeah. And so that's the reality of it. But how do you then have a conversation with them to bring them into a way to contribute helpfully?
Yeah.
And not make you feel bad. So communication skills, a lot of I statements, help me understand, I'm confused, good communication. And again, there's places to learn those skills. If that's something that you didn't grow up with innately, there's places to learn good communication skills and people to help.
Very good. Melissa D., thank you very much. I know we could probably do a full day on this because there's a lot of information packed in there. Thank you for being here with us. Time for a bio break. Come on back. We've got more today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.